As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
All right, guys, let's talk about CD Projekt. They're in the news. And Jimmy, I think we're going to lean on you for this one because I think it's interesting. And the headline here, CD Projekt has settled its CyberPunk launch lawsuit, suing investors just $1.85 million. The company was accused of violating federal law by misleading shareholders about the game. This is a settlement with a group of investors who sued the company over CyberPunk's disastrous launch. What they're saying is they're paying out only $1.85 million. In comparison, the game made over $563 million in sales, and they spent just $2.2 million on their refund campaign. So to provide refunds to players who were unable to claim one from the original vendor, which, by the way, guys, that's an interesting piece of data that I don't think I had seen before. That's not the total number of refunds. It's the ones that just couldn't get refunds from like Steam or PlayStation or wherever. So 1.85 million, the total damage here to CD Projekt for the disastrous CyberPunk 2077 launch. I'm curious, Jimmy, maybe start with you. This feels a little bit like a slap, just a little slap on the wrist, not even that hard of a slap. Does this sort of clear the way for game developers to not worry about sort of the quality of the product they put out at launch, right? Because I don't know if it could have gone any worse than it did for CyberPunk 2077, and all they end up with is a $1.85 million, settlement.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm not sure the damages originally claimed by those suing investors. And obviously, none of us are here offering legal advice or acting in any type of legal capacity. And to that point, and perhaps it's premature to announce, but we will be announcing some cool upcoming shows where we will be doing more of a deep dive in the legal side of things with some licensed, active, practicing esports lawyers. So, stay tuned for that. Really excited to have that insight, because it will really take these issues that we kind of skirt around or, touch on, but don't treat super thoroughly. And I think there will be a nice analysis and discussion there. When I look at this as just a general layman, right, or as just anyone that's kind of reading about it, one, what were these investors out of pocket and what were they suing for? Two, what's the federal statute and how much does that provide in terms of recovery, which is usually part of that? And three, my other thing I'm looking at is, $563 million on sales. I want to know if that's the net, because there were a lot of buybacks and returns, right, and promises to leverage into next gen releases. If you guys recall, it was a very messy release. I thought it did well, other than the game not working. But then there was a lot of oh, hey, you can get a full refund. Anyone can get a full refund for an extended period of time, outside your normal return window. So I'm curious what the total sales were. Because if you look at 1.8 million on 563, that's not even a slap on the wrist, Paul. That's like some kind of misallocated minor, you know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
Such a non-issue. You don't even think twice about that. And if you also think about legal fees, the standard time it takes to go through the legal system, which could be lengthy and draining. Not only did they come out ahead here, it's just like it's such a massive win for the developer here to avoid, I think, an even nastier fallout from the already terrible press that they got after the game came out and was just hot garbage. So for me, I don't think anyone, honestly, if anything, it gives the developer that much more confidence in being able to do whatever they want, release whatever game they want, and know that that there's really not that much for them to worry about, which is kind of a sad thing if you think about it, because the statutes should be designed to protect, I think, against that type of abuse. But that also kind of is telling us to the investors in terms of how strongly they thought of their own case. They settled because maybe they thought that was the best offer they were going to get, better than taking it through the legal system and taking their chances. So there's a lot of things to weigh in here. Yeah, Jeff. Oh, sorry, Jeff, go for it.
Sorry, I've been itching to jump in. And I think, Jimmy,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You're definitely right in the sense of if we zoom all the way in and just look at the lawsuit, obviously this 1.8 million is clearly nothing for CD Projekt. But to kind of get back to the question of kind of what happened to CD Projekt, I just while we were talking did a calculation. I mean, their stock is down almost 60% since the day they launched that
Massive.
game. So when you look at it in that perspective, obviously that doesn't have to do with the lawsuit. That's because the sales were worse than expected. They kind of killed their reputation in the industry, and obviously because they put out a bad game. So I definitely think developers and publishers should be even more cognizant. And we've seen this problem time and time again, and even recently with the Battlefield launch and the Call of Duty launch and the Halo launch and the New World launch, and I can kind of keep going. So this does seem like a recurring trend, and maybe I guess people aren't learning from these mistakes. But yeah, the CD Projekt launch was disastrous and really set the company back a number of years. If you think about 60% down on the market cap, I mean, that is disastrous for many, obviously for the investors, for the shareholders, for the employees. So nobody's happy there. But in terms of the lawsuit, I agree. It is kind of small potatoes. So it just shows you maybe how hard the burden or how high the burden of proof is for shareholders to win these kinds of lawsuits.
And so guys, just while we were talking, I did a quick look here. So the company CD Projekt, in their financial statements, had an allowance of 51 million for returns. So that was sort of what they had anticipated or what they booked in terms of returns. So, but it's still relative, like that's 10%. That's a big number, but relatively small compared to the 563 million in revenue that they made on the game. But to both your points, fundamentally, the problem seems to be that they can get away with this, right? Like if this was Ford and they released a car that the brakes don't work or like there'd be a much larger...
It's a little bit different circumstances.
Meaning a product that's fundamentally broken, that's not what you paid for. Okay. I don't know what's the better analogy.
I mean, if the game was burning people's eyes out and they went blind, yeah, there'd probably be a lot more liability.
But fundamentally, it feels very small, and it does feel like CD Projekt did get away, considering how much shareholder value was destroyed in this game. Let me just read some of the comments here. Robert, hey, welcome, Robert. This was on TikTok. Discoverability, hyper casual, audience algorithms. Agree, 100%. Wani says, hey, Jimbo, please don't reveal the grand secret. Wani, I don't know if you mean the grand secret to having fans who think he's cute, or the grand secret to this legal question. Owen says, hey, everybody, sorry I'm late. Glad I'm here, though. Owen, welcome. We're glad you are here. Wani says, my guess is shareholders who are in the lawsuit have very, very, very small number of stocks. I mean, no way of knowing. It was a class action lawsuit, right? So also, Jimmy, I don't think there's any way of knowing how many in the class. Like, is it 10 groups? Is it 1,000 groups? I don't know if that information is made public.
The file should be public, but it's hard for us to speculate.
Yeah. But it seems like a very small amount regardless. And I feel like, and Jimmy, maybe you disagree, there's some precedent set here that it doesn't matter how bad the product you put out is. There's not really any liability on the game developer.
It's kind of a broad statement, but I would agree that this definitely favored the developer, and other developers look at this and kind of are reassured, I think, by the outcome.